Before we begin, there's a few things that you should be aware of. If you're doing a SIMnet project that is auto-graded, always use the SIMnet project instructions and the start file in the SIMnet project area. That's what you see on the screen right here. It's really important that you get your instructions right from there. Secondly, if you're doing a project that is not auto-graded, such as pause and practice, we highly encourage that you use the instructions in the sim book rather than the printed book if you have it, because the sim book project instructions are always up to date. And then lastly, there are slight differences between Office 365 and 2019. The book and project instructions are written in Office 365, and where differences exist, they'll be noted in the project instructions or in the sim book. Okay, let's begin. Step 1 has us open up the start file. That's exactly what you see right here. If it opens up in the protected view, simply double click the enable editing button, and now you can work on this Excel workbook. Now is also the time that you can rename your file if you're told to do so by your instructor. Otherwise, you can leave it as is. And that completes step 1. Step 2, we're going to remove a split and freeze panes. So in 2A, it says click the split button. Need to head up here to the View tab. You'll see a button towards the center called Split, and you can see how it removes the split from the active area. Next, I need to click on A4. And just a quick note before I go any further, for those of you that are new with Excel, if you want to know where you are, what to select it, you can go up here. It's the name box right here, and it can tell you what cell or what area you're in. Right now it says A4. Probably hard to see on the video. I'm on A4, but that's a quick double check. So what we need to do now is click on the Freeze Panes button and choose Freeze Panes. You can see that little gray line. This is frozen up here. This is not, and that's going to come into play in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. This is the next step to 31E. There's a 0 in there. I'm going to type in 3. I click in it, type in 3, and then enter. That'll lock it in place. And then next, I'm going to hit Control and Home. And that takes us to the top left corner of the active area. Notice how it doesn't go all the way up to the frozen area up here, but the active area right here. And that completes step 2. Step 3, it says click on the 100% button. You'll see it in the View tab up here towards the center in the zoom grouping. Click on that. It'll shrink things up to 100%. A little easier to see, maybe not on the video, but when you're working on it, it's a little bit easier to see. Next, we're going to click on the Freeze Panes button and then choose Unfreeze. And that's going to remove that frozen section that we did in the last step. And then finally in 3D, we're going to click on cell A1. And you can see it up here in the name box as well. Simple enough. That completes step 3. Step 4, we need to check the spelling in the worksheet. So we're going to click the spelling button. Like most of the Microsoft products, there's a review area, review tab, and there's a spelling, and that's exactly what we're going to do. It says that hiking is spelled wrong, so we are just going to choose change all. It says the spelling is complete and we're good to go. That changes all incidents of the misplaced word, misspelled word. Looking at my instructions here, that completes step 4. And a quick note, I have a printed copy of the instructions, and it's always, in my opinion, a good idea to have the printed copy. I literally go over and check each item as I complete it because it's very easy to miss the little intricate steps. I've been doing this a long time, and that's a way that I can ensure that I get the best grade possible. Just a tip. It's not necessary, but it makes it easier. So let's move on to step 5. We're going to use the fill handle to copy a formula. It says to click on H4. And then next step in 5B, it says to click on the fill handle in H4, and that's in the lower right. It looks like a little square. Might be hard to see on the video. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Might be hard to see on the video, but your insertion point turns into a skinny little plus sign, and then it's going to ask me to double click, and you can see how it then fills in that information, that formula copied all the way down, and puts the appropriate numbers in there. Next, or last I should say, it says hold down Control and Home to go back up to the top of the active sheet. That completes step 5. Step 6 says to click on the Themes button, and that's up here in the page layout group, Themes, and it wants us to choose the Ion theme. Should be towards the top for you. In my example here, it's right here. It's the second row, first choice, but it may be slightly different from you, but choose the Ion theme from the gallery. That completes step 6, moving right along. Step 7, we're going to merge and center the titles. And this is a great skill, because it's not just enough to have great data. It's important to make things look good. And this, what we're going to do here when we merge and center, is how the professionals make things look good in Excel. So we're going to select, we're in A1, so I'm just going to hold down the main mouse button, and I'm going to highlight all the way over to J1. See, that's highlighted. And then you need to be on the Home tab. There's a Merge and Center button. I'm going to click it, and what it's going to do is merge and center over all of those particular columns, and that's great. It doesn't matter whether you resize the columns, things get bigger or smaller, it's always going to be centered over the center. This is a great feature to know. So moving to the next one, it says merge and center A2 through J2. So I'm going to click in A2 and then hold down the left and the main mouse button, select all the way to J2, hit merge and center, and that's going to complete step 7. Step 8, it says apply cell styles and adjust row height. A few little tricky things here, so pay attention. It says select cell A1, and now A1 is the big, wide or long cell. It's not just a little cell, but it encompasses all of the top row right there that you see. We need to click on the Cell Styles button, and the little down arrow will give us all of the choices. We need to click on the title choice right here. You can see how it changes the title of this. We're going to do a very similar thing for A2. Click in A2. Cell Styles, the little drop down. And here we need to choose Heading 4. Simple, but yet very effective. This is a great way to make your documents look professional and consistent. Next, it says click on the font size arrow. Right up here, I'm going to change this to 14. And then it says point to the row 1 heading. So what we're going to do, pay attention here. We're going to be changing some row heights, and I'm hovering over the 1. I'm going to click over the 1 right there. I don't really have to, but I'm going to click on it. So that's selected, and I'm going to hold down my main mouse button, and I'm going to highlight down, and it's going to select rows 1 and 2. Then I'm going to click the Format button. It's over here. One of the choices is row height, and it's asking us to type in 22 and hit OK, and you can see what happens. It makes both of those exactly 22 point there, exactly that height. And then in step G, in 8G, it says select A3 through J3. So here we go. A3. Need to select all the way over. And then we need to, in the cell styles, choose yellow, lighter, 40%. Accent 2. Want to make sure I get that right. Accent 3, sorry. Apply bold. Click the B up there. And then I'm going to click on the row 3 heading. And then if I lower my pointer, a little bit hard to see here, towards row 4, it turns into a unique shaped pointer. And I'm literally going to drag this down, hold the main mouse button till it gets 21. It's a little bit tricky, but once I find it there, you can see it. I release it, and you can manually change the row height. It's a little bit easier to use the Format tab the way we did it before, but they wanted to show you both ways. And then lastly, it says click out the zoom out button. The status bar, by the way, is down in the lower right. And there's choices. And then there's the zoom slider. You can zoom in or out. In this case, I'm going to zoom out so I can see all of the worksheet right here. And that completes step 8. Step 9, we're going to change the alignment and format values and do a few other things. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here so you can see it. I'm going to select D4 through F39, D4 through F39. I'm going to click the center button. Now, please note there are two what look like center buttons. One's called middle align. It's the lower one that's center. You can hover over till you get it right. And that centers those. Then I'm going to select G4 through H39. And I'm going to click the accounting number format button. On the home tab, you'll see a little $sign. And if you click right on the $sign, it'll format that as dollars. And before we go any further, if you noticed right here a whole bunch of pound signs in here, this can drive people absolutely batty. I've had students say they stayed up all night trying to how to figure out how to get rid of these. Don't worry about that. The value's in there. It just means that the cell's a little bit too narrow, and we're going to widen everything up in a future step, but the information's there. All you really have to do is widen the column a little bit, and then it'll show correctly. But we're going to do that in a later step. I just wanted to point that out right now. Next, we're going to select cells A3 through J39. And we need to put borders around here. So I'm on the home tab right here. And a little bit different from Word where you do borders, you'll find it over in the grouping a little bit to the right. In Excel, it's up here in the font group. And if you click the down arrow, you get a whole bunch of choices and it'll say all borders, and that'll put borders around everything. And that's really how a lot of worksheets are displayed when they're printed out. It makes it easier to see. So that's why they're showing you that. It says in the font section, the drop down, change everything to 12. So while it's still highlighted there, we'll change everything to a nice consistent 12-point font. Next, we're going to select B4 through C39. And we're going to click the increase indent button one time. And you'll see that up here in the alignment group, there's indent. One's to the left, which is decrease. We're going to click the one to the right, which is increase indent. And it just moves it off the border a little bit, makes it for easier reading. And then we're going to click up here. I'm going to click in the A real quick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to now make the columns wide enough. Let me make this a little bit smaller so you can see it. There we go. So I clicked on the A, or just hover over the A, and then hold down the main, the left mouse pointer, and I'm gonna hover over all the letters till I get the J. It's gonna select all of the columns. Now here it says click in between J and K, but it really doesn't matter where you click. It will actually work in all of these, but if you go to one of the borders and double click in between, say, the I and the J, and here they say between the J and the K, it auto fits all the columns so they're exactly the width they need to be, not any bigger, not any smaller. That's a really handy feature to know. And then lastly, it says select and center everything in row 3, the labels in row 3. So I'm going to click on the number 3. That selects everything in row 3. I'm going to click that center button, and that'll complete step 9. Step 10. Just take your time with this because it's really easy to miss one little thing in here. I'll show you what I mean. We're going to right click on the heading B. I right click, and one of the choices says to insert, and watch what happens. It'll insert a column to the left, and that's exactly what we need. In B3, we need to type in what it says. It says disk with a question mark. Make sure you get the capitalization right, the question mark, everything. Then when you're ready, hit enter. That'll lock it into place. And I'm going very slowly here. In cell B4, type in no with capital N and then the lowercase o. Enter. In the next one down, 5B, capital N and no, lowercase low, okay. And then we're going to put yes into B6 and then enter. Step 10G, this is a very important step. We're going to select cells B4 through B6, and we need to go up here and click the indent button twice. And now we can double click the next step. We can double click on the fill pointer in the lower right hand portion of that selection. You can see how it puts in no, no, yes, no, no, yes, all the way down. And then lastly, this is 10I. It says click or select A4 through A39 and do the indent one time. And then lastly, hit Control and Home. That'll get us up to the top of this active worksheet. That completes step 10. Step 11, we're going to rename the sheet. So down here in the lower left, might be a little hard to see, it says sheet 1. If I simply double click on it, I can rename it, and it wants us to call that inventory. Then hit enter, and that renames that. That completes step 11. Step 12, we're going to use the page layout view to insert a footer. So it wants us to choose the page layout option down here in the status bar. That's in the lower right. There's the normal view if you hover over it. The next one over is the page layout. So if you click on that, you can see it gives you the view of each page. And here it wants us to click on the center section heading. If you hover over the header here, the heading, if you click inside that, it makes the header and footer tools active. And then you should see a button up there. It says go to footer. So you can go right from the header down to the footer. And it should be in the center right there. If it were somewhere else, you can click in the center, but it should be in there. Next, you have to choose file name. This is automatically going to put the file name in there. So you don't have to copy it or retype it. It'll automatically place it in there. And then you can just click really anywhere in the body of the document here, the worksheet, and that will lock it into place. And then it says hit Control and Home, once again, to get back up to the top. And then lastly, it says click the normal view. A couple different ways to find this, but in the status bar, there's a choice down there, and I click on it, and that completes step 12. Step 13, change the page setup options. Once again, we're over here in the page layout tab. In the page setup launcher, and we need to head over, click the launcher in the lower right. I'm reading each step as I check it off. I click landscape right there, little radio button. Then fit to, and it should say 1:1. If it doesn't, you can change that, but I'm pretty sure that on your computer it'll say 1:1. I'm gonna click OK. That'll lock that into place. It says switch to normal view. Click that button in the lower right. It's a normal view down there. Everything looks fine there. And then hit Control and Home. And it may have already been up there, but they asked to do it anyway. That completes step 13. We only have a few more steps here. Step 14, it says set the print area. We're going to select cells A1 through K11 over here. And sometimes with Excel, you don't want to print everything. You want to print a selection, and this is one of the ways that you can do it. Page layout tab, make sure that's selected. And then you want to choose print area, which means this is going to be the print area, and then set this as the print area. So choose set print area. Hit Control and Home. Then we're going to go over here to the File tab, to the Print button, and you should see that selection over here. And it says just head back over with the back arrow to the main worksheet, and that'll complete step 14. Step 15 says to save your changes. So I'm going to click the up in here, this quick save option. It should look like a little diskette. If I click that, that'll save this document. And then we're pretty much done. Step 16 says to close the workbook. 17 says to upload and save your project file. And then finally, last, 18, it says to submit your project for grading. Best of luck, everybody.